Hello and welcome to the Things That Don't Change, Spooky Edition. So, um, so my name is Thomas Walheim. That is Chris Hayden. Um, I'm going to ask you a question before you even get started, which is, how do you pronounce this brand?
So funny story. It's an inside joke
Wow.
amongst
Okay, I didn't even know that this was a thing. I'm just wondering how it's pronounced.
yeah. So I think it's supposed to be Schweppes, but between
Okay,
me, my brother, and our cousin, it's Schweeps. So
Shreeps.
yeah, that's just kind of a thing we do. I don't know why, but we always say, oh yeah, get some Schweeps. So it's
So,
Schweeps.
so I asked because I've heard it pronounced Schweppes a lot, whereas I read this and I'm thinking in terms of German, so I'm thinking like Schweppes,
I mean, that's
or
probably.
Schweppes.
Is it a German
Um,
company?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's it. Like it's ginger ale, which I in my dumb brain, because of the other common brand of ginger ale, I think as being a Canadian drink. So
Just
I
kind
don't
of
really know.
dry. Yeah. So yeah,
Anyway,
in amongst my family, it's Schweeps.
gotcha. All right, so hello and welcome to the Things That Don't Change, where we endeavor to view an ever-changing world through the lens of eternity. We're doing something a little bit fun this week. So, Chris, you had the wonderful idea of, hey, we've done some lists of favorite books, favorite movies, things like that, where we're just kind of going down the list of here's something and here are the themes that play in it. And you were like, hey, it's October, man, which means there's something that we got to do, which is we got to talk about spooky stuff.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, we got to talk about some of the more eerie aspects of fiction, music, whatever it is. So we've come up with lists of some of our favorite spooky stories, and some of them are there might be some actual horror in there, which different people have different tastes toward, but I think a lot of it's actually just going to be here are things that employ some more spooky, eerie elements.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas some are more classical monster things. So yeah. Anyway, without further ado, would you like to start us off with your first?
Sure. I'll start off with a Halloween classic. Good old Scooby Doo on Zombie Island.
Scooby Doo on Zombie
Yeah, I
Island.
love this movie so much. We talked about Scooby Doo before, so I don't necessarily need to belabor the whole Scooby Doo lore as we've gone over in previous episodes, which is a crazy thing to say for this podcast. That we talked about that in the previous episode. Go back and watch that.
Yeah.
But Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. Um,
It's
it's
one of those films that has absolutely no right to be as good as it is.
Yeah, just I guess this is perspective. Like this came about in a time when there hadn't been any new Scooby Doo content in like a couple of years. You had the pup named Scooby Doo, and then it was just basically reruns of the original, like on Boomerang and Cartoon Network. And then the late '90s came around and like, hey, let's do something new. Let's make a
Yeah.
movie, like a Scooby Doo made for TV type movie. And they
With the
kind of gave
crispest animation ever in Scooby Doo.
they gave a blank check to the people who they said they want to make this movie, like Warner Brothers, whatever. It's like, look, whatever you want to do, make a movie. So they got like some animation studio in Japan to do the animation, and then they came up with the story. And yes, it's super crisp animation. It's like beautifully animated. And it's a really good story.
Yeah.
It kind of
And also creepy as hell.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally the whole premise of the thing, right, is that they're this is kind of after they'd been doing mysteries and unmasking people for
Yeah, people have
years
drifted
and
apart.
years. Yeah, they drifted apart, gone their separate ways. Daphne's has her own television show. Fred's a producer. Scooby and Shaggy work basically everywhere because they keep getting fired because they eat everything.
Yeah. They
Velma
worked for the
works in
TSA for a hot second.
yeah, before the TSA was a thing because it was
Yeah, yeah.
1998.
Just airport security.
Yes. And then, Velma worked in a bookshop. But then they all decided to get back together for Daphne's birthday to kind of go find some real ghosts. Like that's Daphne's like, I want to find some real ghosts for my show. So they go down to New Orleans, and end up going to this house, which is supposed to be super haunted. And they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. And yeah, it turns out that there's actual zombies and actual ghosts who are at this house. And it's kind of like a shock for them because they're so used to being guys in masks the whole time. And yeah, it's just a really for a show like Scooby-Doo, which for decades at this point had been kind of oscillating between real ghosts and guys in costumes and never really confronting the fact that suddenly the ghosts are real. Like it was just kind of, oh, now they're just happen to be real. Like
Right.
it was really refreshing to see like this kind of idea where they're like, oh, we're so used to it being guys in masks, but wait, is there something more going on here?
Right.
Something that
Which
the
also
Scooby-Doo
for
movie,
the narrative, the overarching narrative of Scooby Doo, it's like it kind of functionally retcons a lot of
yeah,
the times where it was a real ghost, because that was not their best content.
yeah,
Like
definitely,
up to that point. And so it's a like, okay, so when you're acting as though, oh, we just drifted apart when we kept finding guys in masks,
right,
um, like, and it was kind of getting old or whatever. It's like having that be a moment of like, wait, is there something real going on here? No, it can't be. It's
yeah.
like, okay, so we're just ignoring the rest of that. Cool, got it, cool.
Also, the first time the original 1969 Scooby-Doo theme song was redone, since the 60s. Like, clearly, they
True.
hadn't used it since. And then, all four of those movies, because there was like they had the quadrilogy or whatever, the four movie. It was that one. It was Witch's Ghost, the Alien Invaders, and then Cyber Chase. All utilize the Scooby Doo theme song as kind of part of their opening sequences. But it's just a really great movie, and
Yeah.
it Zombie Island walked so that the Scooby Doo live action movie could run, because literally the Scooby Doo live action movie stole all of the same plot beats, basically.
Right.
The fact that they were together, they were sick of going after regular or guys in costumes. They drifted apart.
Yeah.
Daphne loves kung fu. Like, all these things, Zombie Island did so much better in 1998.
Yeah. And really, I think the better way to put it is that Scooby Doo on Zombie Island sprinted so that
Yeah,
the Scooby Doo live action movie could crawl, because
there.
the live action movie did it way worse.
Yeah. So yeah, Scooby Doo and Zombie Island, always a favorite of mine. It was the one out of the four of those movies I did not own, so it was always like special when I got to see it.
Yeah.
So it just has that little bit of extra thing in my head. It has, what was it? Terror Time, and then The Ghost Is Here, which are two fantastic original songs that
Yeah.
were part of two fantastic sequences that I've always loved. So yeah, that's always something I come back to every October for the spooky month.
Yeah, so there's there are two aspects of I'm gonna go with like two silly things before I go into the actual like spooky aspects of it. So um two things from just two of the greatest voice acting performances ever, both in this movie. One was Jim Cummings,
Yeah,
who so if you don't know who Jim Cummings is, if you've
you
ever watched a
do.
cartoon, that's him.
Yeah.
So
Hanzo from Star Wars,
yeah,
Tigger at one point.
yeah.
Yeah, he did
Jim
the
Cummings,
lightning bug.
he's done a lot of animals. He's done a lot
Yep,
of people.
yeah, lightning bug
Um,
from it was lightning bug, right? From
yeah.
Princess and the Frog.
Which is the second time
He's done
that
a Cajun guy.
in even in this conversation that he has done a bayou drawl. And so he like this is the Louisiana Bayou. For those of you who are not familiar with Louisiana, the Cajun accent is a very particular accent, and honestly, good on Jim Cummings that he's able to do it so effectively. But there's this one line that, for the life of us, we have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah.
And so I don't even remember like what the line is that either Daphne or Velma says to him, and he just says "Gooba." It's like what? And then we like looked up
Cher's
like
in there.
yeah, share, I guess. It's
Yeah.
like, oh dear or whatever. But it's like he says, oh cool, but yeah, share. And we're like, what was that? And we
Didn't
like
you
looked up the
actually look up?
script.
Yeah, you looked at the script once,
I
and
looked at the script, did not lend any clarity.
he must have
it's like,
ad-libbed that part.
like, he just ad-libbed this thing that sounded vaguely Cajun, I guess. But in any case, that's just a funny little thing. The second is I won't spoil anything about this. Well, I guess I will spoil some things about this. But it's a good film. If you're looking for a good, like a spooky film that you can still be watched with your family, that's actually kind of a fun time.
Yeah.
So the so it's not going to be spooky the same way that The Shining is spooky,
Right.
but also won't give your child nightmares the way that The Shining will give your child nightmares. um, Shout out to my wife's like grade school teacher who made them watch It with Tim Curry when she was in like 7th grade. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? But anyway, um, so there's this gardener that works for. Essentially, the plot is that they go to this this island where there's this manor that like there's this sort of like Vanderbilt DuPont sort of like old American money, old aristocratic family. Um, this woman is the heiress to this plantation fortune at this manor, and it's haunted by all these antebellum um, and tourist zombies.
Yeah.
Um, like basically a bunch of people die there over the years, and
It
they
has
just
this reputation as like a kind of
yeah,
spooky place that people may or may not come back from.
right. As well as like, oh, once you go, you'll never return, and they're like, sign us up, and so they go
It's
across
kind of their whole thing.
yeah, so they go across the bayou over to this little island with this manor on it, and the gardener that works for this lady, um, I don't. So Scooby and Shaggy are just like wreaking havoc as they always do, and
Yeah.
they end
She
up
has a lot of cats, and Scooby hates cats.
yeah. So
He
she
also
has a
doesn't
lot of
know he's a
cats.
dog, but yeah.
Yeah, she has a lot of cats that will come into play later. So she has a lot of cats. Um, Scooby keeps terrorizing them until they're suddenly terrorizing Scooby, and so he's like chasing this cat around. He like just like is like disemboweling these flower beds and stuff, and so they formally apologize to this woman for their dog's behavior. I feel like for the first time ever acknowledging that he is a pet. Um, and and she goes, oh well, I don't even remember the gardener's name.
Bo.
Bo, yes. She goes, oh well, Bo will take care of it. And one of the greatest ad-libbed lines in all of voice acting, Bo goes, "Yeah, I'll take care of it, gardener." It was like, okay, sure, but
Most of his voice lines are him mumbling random things.
yeah. So
I don't.
so I'm gonna spoil a good bit here, but still, it's a good film. You'll enjoy it. Um, so the plot is essentially that yeah, they are actually like super old. Like um the lady and her um maid slash housekeeper and also Jim Cummings character who runs the ferry, like they've all been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And essentially there's some ritual that they go through. The reason that they have a bunch of cats is because they're cats. It's a weird thing. Not like Andrew Lloyd Webber cats.
Right.
Like I'm talking like no, like freakish cat people. Like
Yeah,
this
like
is like
werecats.
monster movie sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like they are these humanoid, like vicious cats, and um, and so they, for all intents and purposes, it's a matter of like, yeah, these people keep dying here and being undead like zombies because the zombies are actually trying to stop them. They're trying to stop these like witch cat people because they have this like ritual that is like taking the life force from all these people to keep them young,
Yeah. And that
and
zombifies them,
it
because of
zombifies
that.
them to keep them like eternally young. And so the idea is essentially that like the zombies are actually the good guys in a
Yeah.
weird twist of fate. um and so it's a very fascinating film working with those themes. Now here's the thing about me is that part of the reason why I don't consume a lot of horror, and when I say a lot of horror, I mean like I can do monster movies. Like monster movies
Yeah.
are fun, you know. I can to a limited degree um do like sort of like a slasher film sort of thing. Um but that I find just generally less pleasurable, not
Yeah.
like a moral conundrum with it. I just don't enjoy it as much. Um Whereas like classic monster movies are like, oh yeah, this is where it, like hit its heyday, you know? Um, but the reason why I don't consume a lot of horror stuff is because um, we talked before about how like people who obsess about exorcism, it's like that's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's like when you it's unhealthy to be too fascinated with the demonic. Um, so personally, I don't really go for films that portray like Ouija boards or witchcraft or things like that. Like even like you ever see like Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman?
Mm.
Essentially, they're witches. Their moms are witches. It's like
Yeah.
it's just That's the whole plot, is that they're witches in the modern day, and um and it's like, even though that is a Hollywoodized version of witchcraft, it's like, yeah, I still really don't want to get near it, you know. Um and so it takes certain degrees of separation for me to be like, I feel like this is kosher to deal with. Um, these ladies in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island are definitely witches, but it's like working with a trope version of witchcraft, like not in a sense of like they're not doing the like incantations or like it's more of a like, oh yeah, we have voodoo dolls because voodoo.
Right, we're in Louisiana. That's just kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
And so it's a voodoo doll. Are we gonna study how voodoo dolls work? Like, just these are voodoo dolls. Work with it. Roll with it. Um, and then okay, we're going to have this like ancient ritual that we go through to sap the life force from these people and zombify them so that we can stay eternally young. Is that a real incantation? Not that I know of. I haven't really delved very deep
Yeah.
into the tomes of witchcraft, but that's like a degree removed. It's like, okay, we're working with like a sort of vague idea of witchcraft here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but like, I feel like for me, the well, I'm going to turn this into a segue. So, is there anything that you want to say more about Scooby Doo on Zombie Island?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
So a couple quick things. So talking about voice acting, also had Mark Hamill voice acting as Snakebite Scruggs, the crotchety old Cajun fisherman who
Crocodile Dundee, but make him Louisianan.
yeah, exactly. And him and his hunting pig mojo. And then I could just keep saying it. It's a great movie, over and over again. But yeah, because I think that they do well in kind of having that creepiness without it feeling like it's a little too much. Like I
Yeah,
don't remember again. I'm not somebody even as a kid who
it is
got
genuinely
super.
creepy though.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it is. Like that's
yeah,
what I was gonna say. Like the one scene I think gets that the best is when they first encounter the zombie Scooby and Shaggy. They've fallen into a giant pit that was dug, and literally the sun gets covered over, so then the harvest moon powers, whatever the heck, can start animating the zombies or whatever the specifics are. And literally you see like the green energy beam come down and because they accidentally dug out like an arm, like a skeleton arm, and then
yeah,
literally they're standing there while the sky beam makes the skeleton fall out of the dirt and then starts reforming itself as a zombie and like growing
yeah.
skin. It's a really like creepy scene, but I don't think overdone. Like I think it was very well done, and you don't see that again with the zombies like in any other scene. But like it's just a wow. This is like oh my gosh, what is this? This can't be something like a guy in a
Yeah.
suit. This is something real going on here.
And when we say creepy, like nowadays
Morgan
the word,
Moonstar was a creepy looking guy too.
yeah.
That was a creepy
So
zombie.
there's something valuable actually within fiction to something being creepy or spooky or eerie. Like nowadays when we use the word creepy, most of the time we're talking about an unwanted advance romantically by somebody is being
Yeah,
creepy. But it's like,
we'll
no,
get
but
to that
creepy can,
later.
yeah. So so the there's a value in fiction to making something creepy or spooky or eerie because you're highlighting, you're evoking in somebody, in the viewer or the reader or whatever it is. I'm laughing because like within frame we just had this tiny face of St. Thomas Aquinas poking out.
Just saying.
Um, the this is an old shirt, but it says let's give him Suma to talk about. Um, so yeah.
I get it.
But anyway, so there's something valuable to having something be spooky or eerie or unsettling because you're trying to evoke in somebody a fear that they actually need to have.
Mhm.
You know, it's training fear in a way, like in the same way that like old horror movies used to be a the old slasher films. They used to be like, oh, somebody would be like engaging in some sort of sexual debauchery, or they'd be engaging in like some like they'd be like shooting up some drugs or whatever, and then the serial killer would come up
Right.
and kill them. It's trying to instill you're trying to make someone associate a vice with a fear, which might seem controlling, but it's like, but no, it's just trying to evoke a healthy fear of something, right?
Mhm.
In the same way that like old fairy tales used to do this all the time. I was telling you and Jess recently about the fairy tale of the guy who would come and cut your thumbs off with giant scissors if you didn't stop sucking your thumb as a kid. And I was like, yeah, because we want kids to stop sucking their thumbs. Like, and like also that gruesomeness is something that we are so is so foreign to us now that like we going back to fairy tales for a second. Fairy tales, we look at them now, we look at like Grimm Brothers fairy tales, we look at Russian fairy tales. Oh my gosh, like most fairy tales from most cultures, it's a like, wow, this is really gruesome. What was wrong with you people? But it's like, no, it's not what's wrong with you people. It's actually, why are we now so sensitive? Because you gotta understand, blood and gore and death were like just part of a child's life for most of history because they were watching their food get slaughtered all the time.
Yeah.
Like they were watching all their friends die of the plague all the time. Like it was like this is just a fact of life. We are now removed from that because we get our meat at the grocery store where no animals are harmed. Like,
Right.
we get our meat in like these pre-packaged things and we don't even like when we have to open it and a little bit of blood comes out and we're like, eh. But it's like, no, that's an animal. Like that's how that
Mhm.
works.
Yeah.
Like, and we're so removed from it that now these things seem gruesome to us, but they only seem gruesome because have such a clinically sanitized version of things in our head, right? So like evoking a fear of these things and making it like jarring to somebody actually in some ways is good, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's good to make something like zombies. I think is a good example because it's something unnatural when something that is meant to be dead is revivified. And it's like that seems unnatural and eerie to us because no, that's supposed to stay in its casket and be preserved. In a weird way, it's actually kind of like a respect of the dead thing that makes zombies so eerie to us, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah.
So
May I
speaking
do
of
one?
the undead,
What's that?
I don't know. Whatever you're gonna do next. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of the undead, the
I
segue I
figured you
was
were gonna
going to
go where I think you were gonna go.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I'm going to talk about Dracula. We talked about Dracula before, but Dracula's great, so I'm going to talk about Dracula again. Dracula is one of the best books I've ever read. You, I believe, are currently reading Dracula.
yes, I'm very early
Um,
on.
yeah, so I'm going to not spoil too much. I will spoil some things, but the things I've already told you like over a year ago. So
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so Dracula is fantastic because at first, like I tried reading it when I was a kid. Dracula was like, it just seems so dry because it's entirely told in journal entries and letters and newspaper clippings. Like it's all told after the fact. And
Okay.
that in some ways, keeps it loses attention at first because you're like, okay, well, I know that you survived because you're writing this
Yeah.
afterwards. Um, but then you stop hearing from certain people. And now we're moving on to the records of this person, and all of a sudden you're trying to like piece together, like, oh wait, what happened in between this and this? And it just slowly comes into shape. And Dracula is the quintessential vampire story. Um, like no shade to Twilight. Um, like I'm not even saying that to be like tongue in cheek. I actually think like at least two of the Twilight films are really good. I've never read any of the books. Um, the two of the films are really good. The rest also are there. Um, the and one of them is fine. But yeah, when you have five movies, two and a half is
Yeah.
well,
You tried.
yeah. But in any case, Dracula is the quintessential vampire story. I don't even have to like really expand on like what that is. If you're imagining a vampire in a sort of classical sense, you're imagining Count Dracula.
Right. It's like
Um,
if you're trying to imagine pirate tropes, Treasure Island probably came up with those.
right. It's like but there are some things I do find really interesting. Which is there are so many depictions of Dracula throughout
Mhm.
throughout the history of cinema and other art forms. Does any of them do any of them ever portray him with his mustache?
Okay. I'm reading Dracula. That's literally the first thing I thought of. I'm like, wait, Dracula's got a mustache?
I think Gary Oldman did the mustache in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I
Well,
think
he's
that's
Gary
literally
Oldman,
it.
so that makes
I think
sense. Yeah.
everybody else had that um that Bela Lugosi like slicked back black
Yeah.
hair and the fangs coming out with the clean shaven face, like, because that was the quintessential visual that was given of like, oh, this is like Dracula as Dracula originally
Yeah.
was. Um
That was definitely a bit jarring for me. Dracula's got a mustache? What?
yeah. And he has a mustache throughout like the entire book. Like, that's not something that goes away.
Yeah.
Like but yeah, so Dracula is great because, as we were talking about with the idea of like making things scary that ought to be scary, um, like in the same way, you have the counterpart of that, which is making things sacred that need to be sacred.
Yeah.
Like,
I will say on that, from I've
mhm,
read very little so far. Like I'm still in kind of like the first four chapters where it's just from Parker's journal.
yeah,
So very early on, but like the one thing that I was struck by was how often, as he's starting to get more and more unsettled, he discusses how he's got this crucifix that the villagers gave him, and despite the
right,
fact he's Anglican and they're not really as into those types of things, he finds it really comforting and he really appreciates having that. So it's kind
right.
of like, yeah, that's an interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing is that you don't I don't even need to speak in spoilers of like future chapters to you because we can just talk about the general lore of vampires, which all came from Dracula.
Yeah,
You know, um, so yeah, even in the early chapters with Harker, like Harker is so Jonathan Harker's at the beginning of the story, at least, like the main character, um, and he's the one telling the story as you first encounter Dracula. Um, so Jonathan Harker is going to this castle, and like the locals know what's going on. Like they know that castle people come in, they don't come out, and like
yeah,
um this thing keeps coming out of that castle and like stealing children away to be devoured, and so they know that thing is a big evil place. And so they keep trying to tell him like, no, don't go there, don't go there. But there's a language barrier, so he's like, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Like I have business there, I have to go there. I'm sorry.
yeah.
And so they're like, no, take this though, and they like hand him a rosary, and he's like, oh, I'm Anglican actually, and they're like, no, you're taking this
Yeah,
rosary,
the
and
babushka lady's just like, nope,
yeah,
you're doing this.
and so he takes this rosary, puts it around his neck like a crucifix or whatever, and it's brought back over and over and over again that like there's ah this thing in Dracula that just that repels him. Like, please put that away,
Mhm.
like, because he is an unholy creature. It's like they kind of play with in Dracula, like, is he a man who is possessed by something, or is he a demon? We really don't know.
Yeah,
Um, but that's kind of like how monster stories tend to go. Is like you're not actually meant to know everything about this thing. Like part of
that's part of
like
the what makes it scary.
right, because like when something is eerie, I don't remember. I think it was Andrew Clavin a while ago was doing an interview with Matt Fraud. They were trying to define eeriness or spookiness or whatever,
Yeah,
and it's like, but what is eeriness? And eeriness is the fear and unsettledness that you feel when you feel like you're missing some information which is vital.
yeah,
And that's really what it is. It's like there's missing information. I can't understand this thing well enough to be safe around it. You know, there's something looming just around the corner that I don't know about. I
yeah.
there's that feeling of impending doom.
Which is why I
Um,
always felt that like jump scares are barely even comedy,
right,
barely even horror, because it's just kind of you're banking on the fact that somebody's gonna and get the heart
right,
beating a bit, but that's not eerie. That's not really scary.
right. It's not spooky. It's just surprising.
Yeah, I don't like
Like,
surprises. I'm a very jumpy person. I hate that, but that doesn't mean I'm
yeah,
scared. You know?
right. It's like that those those videos that circulate around like the early aughts that would be
Yeah.
like, oh, the most relaxing video of a meadow. And people will be like, oh, I want to see a meadow. And then someone will like jump up in like a clown costume and scream.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's like, is that a horror film? No.
Yeah.
But um but yeah, like there's the common lore about um vampires that you have, yeah, crucifixes. They can't get near crucifixes because that is a depiction of Christ who is their enemy because they
Mhm.
are somewhat demonic. Like to what degree or other we don't really know, but say like no, there's something demonic about them. Whether it is they get their power because of demonic um, cooperation or because they themselves are demons, it's unclear. But whatever it is, that evil force in them cannot get near what is sacred and true and good and beautiful, you know?
Right.
And so crucifixes, no. Holy water, no. The as they call it in the book, the sacred wafer, meaning the Eucharist, no. It's a like these things are the things ultimately that repel the um the evil in these people. And I think that's what I love about Dracula so much is that it's like this is portraying a real evil because evil is real, but it's not just portraying evil and being like, and so you should be scared. It's like no, there are evil things, and then there are good things, and the good things ultimately are the thing that you need to stay close to repel the evil thing. It's like that's good storytelling, you
Yeah.
know, because it evokes that healthy fear, but it also evokes that healthy confidence in,
Right.
and yet I need not fear for my savior lives, you
That's
know?
another one of the other things that I think we talked about this when we talked about horror,
Yeah.
however many months back. But like it's something that bothers me about modern horror is that evil is just kind of this unstoppable force that's
Right.
invincible, and there's really nothing lasting that can happen. You know, what I mean, like, oh, you can kill Michael Myers, but he'll be back in the next movie. So,
Yeah.
you know, like there's no final good that can defeat the
It
evil.
is
That's just not a
the
thing.
evil is this inevitable force that cannot be combated. And now the big thing among like the supernatural horror is like supernatural horror used to be someone's possessed. So we get an exorcist in there.
Yep, get the Catholic priest.
And now it is a, oh well, the exorcist can't do anything and he's just quaking and shivering in a corner um while femme badass comes out and says, "Don't worry, I know how to deal with it." It's like,
Yeah,
how do
burn
you
some
know how to
sage or
deal with it? Like,
something. Yeah,
this is a freaking demon. What are you gonna do? Like, but um, but yeah, like it's. I feel like that's one of the things that's really great about horror like Dracula is that like it is presenting as truly fearsome the evil that is in Dracula and his brides and you know the evil that gives them these powers, but you also know that there is a greater power elsewhere. And it's like that's really how we ought to view evil generally. And so I feel like
mhm,
that's a really healthy way to portray that kind of story, you know?
yeah.
What do you have? What's your next one?
Um, well, I guess we can talk about another I think good gothic horror,
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera.
My
Speaking of
favorite,
creepy
yeah,
advances.
my favorite horror musical. That was the callback.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really enjoy Phantom of the Opera. I wouldn't. I read the book once, so I'm a little more familiar with the musical. Just I've listened to it
Yeah.
more. Um, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's like my most favorite musical or super high up, but it's definitely a really good one. I really enjoy it,
Yeah.
and I'm always a little confused as to what the genre people tend to slot Phantom of the Opera into because I think on one hand a lot of people try to say it's like a love story. I
Yeah.
don't really think it's a love story. I think it's
Nah.
more of it's a horror story. I mean,
You could
like,
say it's a romance in the more classical understanding of the word, but like
yeah,
not as in romantic love.
right.
It's a no. This is it's romantic. It's not romantic. You know.
Right, because I mean, ultimately, the story is that you have this, you know, this young woman, who's basically being followed by this creepy guy who lives in the walls
Mm.
of the
Not
Paris
just
Opera House.
followed, manipulated.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I mean, that's the whole thing. You know, he's playing on the fact that she misses her father, and she's dreaming of this angel of music that her father said would kind of help her out, and he's also teaching her to be a good opera singer, so helping her in that way, but also using that to kind of further his whims, both musically and also pent up sexually, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I enjoy Phantom of the Opera because yeah, I mean, I think it gets to a lot of kind of those same things. Like it's a bit unsettling, and just this idea, especially early on, as to who is this guy, what is he doing, what's happening here, and then as it unfolds, you kind of see this interplay between him and Christine. It's like she wants out of this, but at the same time, she's so enraptured because of what she believes him to be, which he isn't.
Right.
And at the same time, she does feel bad for him. So there is an element of that, like he is this guy who's kind of been cast out of society in many ways, and he's kind of living underground because he feels that he's a circus freak or whatever it is. Trying to remember, in the book, was he part of a circus or something?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, because I don't know if they get into into the play, but yeah. So
Where he met the Persian,
yes,
who's
exactly,
not a
because
character in
also
the
not in
in
the play.
the play or in the movie.
Great character though. I'm
Yeah,
sad
great
that he missed
character.
out. Yeah, I like them both because they're in many ways they're the same story but told in different ways. Because like in the
Yeah.
book, Raoul and Christine are very young and a lot more naive, kind of in their outlook. Christine kind of still is in the book, but Raoul's a lot more sure of himself in the book,
Yeah.
or in the movie, or in the play than he is in the book. In the book, he's less so. But what was I gonna say? But yeah, I do enjoy it. Um, there's something specific I would say, but I can't remember. So comments and
I
maybe
feel
it'll come
like
back
I
to me.
feel like so one of the things I was gonna say as you're talking about this is that like when you're saying I like both when we're talking about like the book versus the play, it's a lot like Lord of the Rings. That's like the more that like the more that I read Lord of the Rings, like I've read the whole series once. I'm currently rereading it, and I was rewatching Fellowship again. It's like having read the books because I watched the movies first. I watched the I think I just got that backwards, but I watched the
I've
movies
been getting it
first.
backwards the whole time, so it's
Um,
fine.
but I watched the movies first, and then I read the books. Now having read the books, I'm like, I get it. I understand why people say that, like, oh, this is better. Like the books are just richer, and that's not any fault of the movies. Like there's just it's more given to that medium. That doesn't mean the movies are bad. The movies are really good, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
it's
just a
like,
matter of you need to kind of think of them as different
right,
things,
they are
in,
different
that
entities
sense.
based on the
Different
same
genres.
thing.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think musicals lend to this a lot because a musical, by definition, kind of has to pare down the source material to a format that's conducive to music and also a specific time frame. Like
right,
you have only a specific amount of time to fit two acts into the
right,
story. Like something like Les Mis has to be obviously changed a lot to get into 3
right.
hours instead of 20 or whatever it would
And
take to actually.
also, I don't know the technical terms for this. I'm not enough of a theater kid to really um know the technicals of this, but um if you are going to let's compare for a second when it comes to musicals, you have musicals like Les Mis or Hamilton that like spoken dialogue is sparse. Like
Yeah.
it's just constant music throughout. Then you have, I don't know the technical term, but I'm going to say a sporadic musical. Like they will spontaneously break into song in between dialogue. It's like you also have to figure out timing in a sense of that. It's not just a matter of acts, it's a matter of, okay, and how much story can we fit in before we are due for another song?
Right.
Because if you go too long between songs, then it'll be jarring once the song starts. And
Yeah.
so yeah, musicals, you really have to pare down the source material a lot because you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I convey the basic quintessence of the story while still being able to use this format, which needs a certain timing and a certain
Right.
spacing.
Yeah.
And so can you fit in easily a like we always bring up the Persian. Everybody who likes the book talks about the Persian as like the missing character. There are other things missing from the
Yeah.
book, but it's like the Persian is kind of like the most evident. And it's like, are you really going to be able to fit in a whole backstory of who the Persian is and why he's here and what he's doing into the musical? it would be a task.
Well, because now
So
you're in the
like,
second act. By that point, you
right,
kind of have your characters, so it's like
right.
there's not really enough time to throw in another one.
And it would feel too much like a Deus ex machina. It's like, what is this? How, where did this come from? And
Yeah,
so, um, so like when it comes to the uh, the book Phantom of the Opera, which was my favorite book when I was a kid. Um, Fun fact: I got off of um Gaston Leroux's Phantom of the Opera, and I was like, "Oh, I love the eeriness of this. I'm going to read Dracula next because that's like the next eerie book."
yeah,
And I got like a chapter into that. I'm like, "I'm so bored," and I put it down until I was 28.
yeah. I mean,
And
Phantom of the Opera is definitely more readable, just
yeah,
the style wise, but yeah,
yeah. The it takes a little more discipline to get into Dracula, and then once you're
yeah,
into it, you're like, "Oh, now I'm invested," you know. Um, but in any case, it's the same thing with Lord of the Rings. That's like a is the book a little more cohesive? Yeah. But if I'm looking for the spectacle,
yeah.
like visual medium is more given towards spectacle. So if you
And
want
there's
the
something to be
spectacle of Phantom of the Opera, the musical is great.
right, and there's
You
something to
know?
be said about if you want to adapt a story that takes place at an opera house, you make it an opera. Like
Right.
it just makes perfect sense.
Right. It's
Like
poetic.
that's one of the things is that again, if you're there for a musical, you kind of know what to expect. But for some musicals, it's like, oh, why are we singing at this point? It's like, well, no, it makes sense that they're singing. They're all opera singers.
Yeah.
So like it works as um part of the thing. But some things I'll say that I do enjoy about Phantom of the Opera is I like that idea of you're just in this place, this regular normal place, and there's just something off going
Yeah.
on. Again, a lot of that's just kind of horror standard, but just that idea that there's something here that's maybe a person, maybe not, and of course we learn that eventually is, but like there's something living here. It's basically your classic ghost story, except obviously it has a real guy in it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm reminded of I think I might have when I was a kid and I used to write stories. I think I might have written one or two stories where it was like, in school after hours and there's something eerie going on. Like that same type of
Yeah.
idea, where you're like in a familiar place, but when you're not really supposed to, that's not quite the same thing, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No,
I,
totally.
I enjoy that type of horror or kind of like the it's living in the walls type thing where it's like, how's it
Yeah.
getting around? Oh, there's secret passages and all this stuff. Like it's just kind of gothic and kind of creepy in that way. Um, and I also, can you say something on that?
I was just saying, like, well, mine's a bit of a separate note, but I was gonna say where I feel like a lot of Phantom of the Opera goes awry, going off of what you're saying about Dracula, the idea of this is a clear evil,
Hmm.
and then this is the clear good that defeats the evil. That's a little more cut and dry in the book,
Yeah.
whereas the musical it seems romantic and passionate, and that's a little more evident in that kind of medium where we're not only the visual medium but also song,
Yeah.
like and so you sympathize more with um the villain of the piece, and you kind of forget that he's the villain of the piece. Like,
Right.
yeah, he's the titular character, which makes you feel like he's the main character. He's the protagonist. It's like, no, he's actually a bad guy. Like, he is the villain.
Yeah. He's literally murdering people.
Yeah, you can sympathize with why does he feel motivated to do this, but you can't actually like excuse what he's doing. And I feel like Phantom of the Opera as the musical was going really well until we got Love Never Dies.
Oh, don't
Which,
get me started on Love
which
Never
I'm not.
Dies.
We're not going to waste a whole lot of time on this podcast talking
No, we're
about Love
not.
Never Dies, but I'm just going to give a quick one sentence summary. Love Never Dies is the sequel musical to Phantom of the Opera, where they're now in New York,
Coney Island. Yeah.
Coney Island, and the Phantom has set up shop there, and Raoul and Christine, their marriage is falling apart because Raoul's a drunkard,
Yep.
and it's like it's just a all right. Well, we ended things in a nice place there. That like where we had that sort of clear cut in Dracula. Here's the evil, and here's the good that defeats the evil. When you pair these two together, where you have Phantom of the Opera and its sequel, it's a all right. Here's the evil. Here's the good that defeats the evil. But that good was actually like a piece of garbage. And so actually, this evil is actually the good guy. And like there's like this whole jumble of like okay, now there's no clear morality. There's no clear picture as to like who is the good guy, who is the bad
Right.
guy.
I mean, like Phantom of the Opera ends in that like the Phantom decides he's gonna let Christine go.
Right.
Like that's the bad guy realizing, no, I need to be, I need to be merciful. I need to do the good because what I'm doing is not.
Right.
I'm trying to hold her here against her will, and that's wrong.
The book,
Like,
which I haven't read since I was a child,
yeah.
but I read this book when I was a boy, and one of the things I found particularly fascinating about it is that the end of the book is the Phantom, who is the villain, like very clearly the villain, talking to the Persian, who is simultaneously his greatest enemy but his oldest friend.
Mhm.
Um, he's talking to the Persian and talking about why he let Christine go.
Yeah.
And it's this transformative moment of like, yeah, and you know what? The villain doesn't get his comeuppance, but the villain does get a chance at
Redemption.
transfiguration,
Yeah.
redemption. It's a like, oh, he's clearly moving in a positive path, and so I'm choosing to let him go. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, Now, should you, when he's murdered several people up to this point? No.
Well, yeah.
But
I
for
mean,
the sake of a
at that
story,
point,
it's good.
right. Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
as a story of redemption, if you're looking at it from that sense, I think that's enough for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't need a believer love never dies. But one thing I will say is that one of the things that makes Phantom of the Opera fantastic is that opening prologue where they're in the opera house like 20 years later, and they're auctioning
Yeah.
everything, and then they just say, oh, and frighten away all the ghosts of all these many years ago because they got the
Yeah.
electric light on the chandelier now, and then
Right.
they say, gentlemen, turn it on or whatever, and then you get that organ and that
Yeah.
fanfare, Phantom of the Opera, and they raise it as the whole stage opens up
Oh,
back into
man.
the 1870s, and Love Never Dies is supposed to start like that. I was listening to the soundtrack for longer than I should have, and I'm like, where is that moment?
Yeah.
Where is that
Yeah.
big? And there's none of it.
If you the nature of a musical is that you have to have some theme that is just absolutely recognizable as that is a part of that musical, you
Mhm.
know? And so you have so for Dracula, for some reason, that became Toccata and Fugue.
Yeah,
Um, no one knows why. Like there,
you know,
that wasn't even in one of the like movies that
yeah,
like they had other monster movies where some other but for some reason we associate that with Dracula. The
yeah. I think the first horror movie to use that was just I don't remember which one, but it definitely wasn't
yeah,
Dracula.
it wasn't Dracula. It wasn't Nosferatu, which was the
Yeah,
we're getting around copyrights to make a Dracula movie. Um, but that opening organ piece where they're bringing out they're auctioning off different things from the opera house to try to make ends meet because the economy isn't great because this is France at that time. But he says, "All right, lot 666 then, a chandelier in pieces," and they bring in the chandelier and it's been fitted for the new electric light and then yeah he says, "Gentlemen," and it goes the chandelier starts raising up and lighting up
yeah.
and it goes into that bum, 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 bum. Like that, even if like there are some musicals, some movies that's like how I said in a previous episode that like I would watch Return of the Jedi for just that one 5-second crawl of Luke
Yeah.
beating Vader back with that swell of John Williams score. Like that's not even a bad thing. That's not even insulting the movie. It's like, yeah, I am kind of just watching it for this because that's a great moment. That's really Phantom of the Opera to me. It's like it has other good parts. I'm there for dun 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 dun
Right.
dun, which comes up a couple of times, so you're still in your seat. Like
Right.
that is I went to see that on Broadway, and um Jess very, very graciously got me tickets to see it because she was like, I know you love this musical. I'm not really familiar with it that much. I like vaguely the way that everybody is, but I don't really know it. And literally, we get to that part, dun 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 dun, and the chandelier's raising up, and I'm like, that's so good. I turned to Jess, I'm like, all right, we can go, and we didn't.
That's
But I'm
the
just saying that as
moment.
a
Yeah.
joke. But then Jess, um just like falls asleep like in the seat in the theater. She falls asleep for another part of the play and she like turns to me, she wakes up, she's like, I'm so sorry. I think I fell asleep. I'm like, oh, that's fine. Like, I just need you to be awake for a couple of parts.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the couple of parts where that happens. Dun, 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 dun. But yeah, there are like the couple of like, you gotta hear them songs and then everything in between. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. All right.
Yeah. One last thing I will say about Phantom of the Opera, that what exactly am I trying to say? So you have that dynamic. Like when I look at Phantom of the Opera, that I see that you have this mysterious figure who's committing all these crimes and
Yeah.
taking advantage of this young woman, and all of these things. Um, but one thing I found interesting about one rendition of Phantom of the Opera I listened to once, um, which was the Japanese cast album. So
Ooh.
I was going through a kick where I was just listening to Japanese, like just different albums in Japanese, like Les Mis and Frozen and all this stuff. And so I got to Phantom of the Opera, and I'm listening to it, and I heard the woman who played Christine do something I've never heard anyone do before in a Broadway musical. And she, credit to her, she's a fantastic singer, because when she sang in like the normal scene, she's got this very beautiful bravado voice. But when she sang when she's at the Phantom scenes, like when they're singing together and all this, she uses a more sultry voice. Like there's two very distinctive singing
Mm,
voices she's using. And I found that a very interesting way to kind of show like the two worlds Christine's kind of stuck in, where, there's the real world where she's learning to become confident in herself and a good singer in that way. But then she's seduced by the Phantom, and she's kind of
yeah.
enamored by the idea of him as this mysterious figure. And I just never saw anybody in the many different versions of musical I saw use two different singing voices to kind of
Yeah.
communicate that those two different parts of what Christine's struggling through. And I'm like, wow, that's I I couldn't even imagine being able to do that, singing in one voice, let
Right.
alone two. But I was like, wow, that is credit to her for being able to do that. That's really awesome.
Right. I feel like that's one of the things that it I don't know if it's really as obvious in the play. I've only seen one iteration of the play, and that was the one I saw on Broadway. I don't know how other people have done it, but it's very clear in the movie. Um, the movie version of the play, with Jared Butler and Emmy Rossum and whatever that other guy's name is.
Yeah.
um, that movie, I actually love that movie. It's one of those. It's like um it's like the Les Mis movie in a sense of like, if you really love the Broadway musical going into it, this is gonna be kind of rough. Um,
Sure.
but if you are coming in fresh, this is great. And so the movie, it is weird. I was watching it with Jess at one point, and I'm like, dang, this has like some like heavy sexual tones.
Yeah.
Like,
They do that on occasion.
they do, but it's like all throughout. It's just like, wow, this entire thing is like just like, it's simultaneously nothing really is happening graphically or anything like that. Like, it's not even insinuated that anything happens, but just sort of a heavy seductive tones of like she is fully clothed in this evening gown, but is kind of frilled up to functionally look like lingerie sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's simultaneously innocent but seductive in a way. It's like they keep playing with that sort of thing all throughout. Also, it's Joel Schumacher, who is obsessed with nipples.
Great.
Like Joel Schumacher, for those of you who don't know, he's the one who did I'm trying to remember if he did the Batman movie with with Val Kilmer, or if he did the one with George Clooney. But in any case, Joel Schumacher did one of those, and he's the one who gave the bat suit nipples for some reason. Um, and so Jess and I are watching the movie, and that moment of like dun 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 dun, all the cobwebs are being blown off of these statues, and I'm like, hey, look at those statues. That's how you know it's a Joel Schumacher movie. Like,
Yeah.
but in any case, it's a strange thing that's like, there is that sort of seductive tone of it, because that's kind of what it's trying to
Yeah.
portray, is that like, no, this is a very seductive, manipulative thing. You're trying to get the viewer, like I said, there's nothing graphic about it. It's just a tone. You're trying to
Right.
get the viewer in that same place of feeling that pull that Christine feels toward this manipulative character,
Yeah.
only to then in the second act show him to be clearly perverse and evil and controlling. And so I think that actually works in a weird way. That say like you're not being scandalous, but you are playing with the emotion of human nature to say like I feel that same pull,
Right. Yeah.
that same desire, only to then feel the betrayal of this thing that I thought was trustable is now in a murderous rage and trying to control Christine's life, and you're like, dang, that feels wrong all of a sudden.
Right.
Like I wish it had worked out,
Yeah.
which is where you get the love never dies. The I wish it had worked out people, you know?
Which is dumb. But
Yeah,
again, having that in Phantom of the Opera, I think that adds to kind of that eeriness, that creepiness, that kind of
yeah,
spookiness of a different sort than just like a straight up ghost story, which it kind of is.
yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk about just because I talked about Lord of the Rings, in this one, that's going to be involved in here as well. Um, the Village. It's have you ever seen The Village? The Village is great. Um, so I'm going to totally spoil it.
Fair enough.
But it's essentially it's M Night Shyamalan. M Night Shyamalan loves his twist endings. He's obsessed with them, and hey, if it works, great, go for it. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Um, Granted, this is M Night Shyamalan. It's been broke several times, but um, but but hey, he's the man in the arena. I won't criticize. He's had some real bangers. But in any case, the so he made this movie called The Village. The Village is you had these sort of like covered wagon era type people it's and they're living in this village that is surrounded by this forest. It's in the middle of the woods, and there's this creature in the woods or something lurking, hidden in the walls, like you were saying. How's it getting around? And they live a very simple life. Um, they and um they are not allowed to wear the bad color. The bad color is red.
Mm,
They're not allowed to have the bad color anywhere. Any trace of red is buried or burned, because the bad color attracts the creatures in the woods, and they live this very pacifistic life. It's very like Puritan almost, um, like it feels very kind of like Massachusetts Puritan. And they live this very simple life, very strict regimen, and but it's very wholesome at the same time,
yeah.
which makes it not feel Puritan. But it's very wholesome, very simple, and and um and there are the elders of the village who are like controlling everything, governing everything, trying to keep the peace and make sure that everyone's safe from the creatures in the woods. And then finally, um, somebody gets stabbed. Like someone tries to kill somebody, stabs them a bunch of times in a fit of rage, and they go, "Oh no!" And the elders choose um this one character, the main character whose name I forget, but she's played by Bryce Dallas Howard. Um, they take Bryce Dallas Howard's character, who is blind, and that is very essential. And they say, "All right, here's how you're going to get through the woods. We're sending you into the woods. The creatures will have pity on you because you are blind. They will see um, that you are stricken with an ailment, and we hope they'll have pity on you. You need to go into the towns," and that's what they keep referring to as like the other civilizations that no one's ever seen, but the towns. You're
Yeah.
going to go into the towns. You're going to hand them this paper saying that you need these things, and here's what they use for money, and they'll get you the things you need, and you need to come straight back. And then she goes through the woods, and she encounters the creatures and everything, and and then you realize once she finally gets to the towns, she's in modern day Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Like she goes over the woods, and she's living in a nature reserve,
Yeah.
because these were a bunch of people whose lives were ruined because of the violence and horrific things that were happening to them and their families in the modern world. And they said, I just ache for a simpler time. and they were rich enough to say, hey, let's make a nature preserve, and because of the laws, there aren't going to be any aircraft going over it, and so we're able to keep up this farce. And so they make up these creatures. These creatures are these costumes that they wear every now and again to scare the people to keep them in the village.
Right.
And um and so they send the blind girl into the towns because she's not going to know what the towns look like. And and by the end of it, they're going, all right, we created this village to escape the horrors and violence of the real world out there, but now those horrors and violence have come to our village from our own. Maybe this is just human nature. Maybe we need to call it quits
Yeah.
and tell all of these people, hey, we kind of made this up, you know? And so it's a really fantastic story. It's very simple, but really, really well done. Um, and I don't feel bad spoiling it for you or for our viewers because it was spoiled for me before I watched it, and I still thought it was great. Um, the it's unlike when I watched The Sixth Sense for the first time, and my girlfriend at the time was like, "Oh, I really want to show you The Sixth Sense," and I was like, "Oh, I never seen it." She's like, "Oh, I really want to show it to you," and we get like halfway through, I'm like, oh, so Bruce Willis is dead. She's like, what? And I was like, no, like if I were making this movie, like he's clearly like he and his wife
Yeah.
are kind of having a conversation, but she's only responding in ways in which he's not there. Like he's clearly
Yeah.
dead.
She's like,
Like, and
no.
she's like, no, that's silly. What are you talking about? And then like we get to the end of the film, I was like, yeah, so he was dead. That's what I said. And she's like, I hate you. Like, why did you do that? um, but didn't make it a less good film. It just meant that it didn't have the same oh my gosh moment for me. Um, but I think that's the value of a good film is a film that you can watch twice and still enjoy it. If it's just the oh I know that the jump scare is coming, I know that the oh gosh moment is coming,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't have the same payoff. It's not a really good film. It's just a good moment in the theater,
Right.
you know?
And it's a cheap payoff for
Right.
once, and
And
then you're
so
over it.
I've watched The Village many times. It's great. But the thing that I want to talk about actually specifically is the creatures themselves, the monsters that are in the woods. And this is where Lord of the Rings comes into it because they have that same quality to them that the Nazgul have in Lord of the Rings, which
Mhm.
is they are almost cartoonishly horrific.
Yeah.
Like they're just these hooded figures. There's not much to them. Like the Nazgul costumes, very simple. You know, it's we have a dark cloak,
Yep.
and that's kind of it. The monsters in the village, it is a red cloak with a bunch of like spikes sticking out the back, and like a snout of like a warthog, basically, and and it is just, but you don't really see the warthog's face. You just see the snout coming out from the bottom. And so this is some sort of creature, and that mystery of what is this thing is what makes it eerie. Like,
Mhm.
Peter Jackson has always loved, like horror. The, um, and so for him making Lord of the Rings, there are a lot of horror elements. There are a lot of shots, like particularly as you're like going into like, oh, what is the place called where Aragorn goes to summon the army of the undead?
Oh,
The you know what I'm talking about though.
it's a Dunharrow,
Maybe
but there's a name for the path. I think it's just the path of the dead.
it might be just the path of the dead, but in any case, so
There's a fancy
they're
name
like
for it. I'm just
looking
not
into
thinking
the
of.
path of the dead, and there's that like moment, and it's
Yeah.
like that is like an old classic
Oh
horror
yeah.
shot. It's like it borders on cheesy, but it's just classic, you know?
Mhm.
And then you have that same thing where like they're about to go into the halls of the dead, and that south wind comes in and rustles the leaves at their feet, and then Aragorn looks up and he goes, I do not fear death, and he walks in, and it's like also borders on cheesy. like if you went just an inch further, it would be like, oh, it didn't land, but just towing the line
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of that is actually how horror is. Like the difference between a horror movie and a comedy is the music, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's if you have the same scenes, but you have a funny music to it, like as you see um Bryce Dallas Howard going through the woods as a blind girl, and then she's confronted by this monster that is clearly, if you don't have the right music to it, clearly just a costume, because even in the story, it's just a costume worn by a person,
Yeah.
you know? If you have her walking through the woods and then this costumed figure comes along in this really ridiculous garb, and then you have this like bum 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 dun 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 dun. Like
Right.
if you put that with like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme or something, then it's just sort of a like funny moment of what the hell is that? What's going on? But there's something to just having um the vocalizing, like in Lord of the Rings, as the Nazgul are coming in to Bree, and just as that dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
This episode is just me just vocalizing a bunch of
Yeah.
music.
No, naturally.
But there's something to that. There's something to having that kind of eerie looking figure that if it had the wrong music, this would look cheesy. But because it has the right one, it's just ah like
Well, that's also a large part of horror is, yeah, just making sure you set the atmosphere, and that, especially when it
yeah,
comes to a movie, include music and the way you frame the shot and the lighting and costume and all that kind of coming together.
yeah. Nah, it's really good. Did you have any more? I don't really. I kind of lost count of like where we were.
I mean, I have a couple more we could do, but again, we've done two each. We're running near a little over an hour, so I think it's
Yeah,
kind of good where we're at.
yeah. Well, have a fun spooky season, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to say as one closing note, and this might take a couple of minutes, but I will say as one closing note, October is spooky season to the secular world. It is also spooky season to religious people. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I feel like we kind of forget to harness October for what it is. Um, there's nothing wrong with going out for Halloween. The church is outspoken on that, but Halloween even started as a tradition of Catholics, the Catholic Church. It was we're going to dress as these like ghouls and freaks and demons to kind of mock them in a sense, because we are going right around the um the celebration of All Souls, and so we are in a sense mocking these monsters and fiends and ghouls because they represent death, which ultimately has no hold over us if we hope in Christ, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's something to actually like really leaning into that. The idea of like, yeah, I'm going to take what now has been kind of secularized and kind of make it like just fuller, you know? Like
Right.
not just we're gonna do the Christian version of Halloween because like plenty of people tried to do that. It ended up like helplessly cheesy. But it's like no, like just make it fuller. Like do Halloween, but just do it up, you know? Like because what we have now is kind of a watered down version of it. And it's like, yeah, there's something to saying, you enjoy the spooks of it, you can enjoy the little holiday of it, the little sort of secular traditions we have, which are fine. But also there's something to like, yeah, make an ofrenda. Like make a
Yeah.
little altar in your home where you put all the pictures of those who have gone before you, and say a prayer for each of them by name, um and um put some of their like favorite things up on that little altar for the night, just to remember them and to pray for them and whatever it is. Um but also, yeah, take Halloween itself and kind of do it up. Like this is a chance for me to anything that can be rendered unto God, let it be rendered unto God. You know, like if your version of worshiping God is saying, "Hey, I'm going to be singing this Disney song, but I'm making it an offering to you. I hope you enjoy it because I hope it's beautiful, and in as much as I'm able to make it beautiful, great, awesome. That's a secular thing. Give it to God. Baptize everything. We're great at that as Christians. So." Yeah,
Are you saying that we should all be singing Ernesto de la Cruz from Coco for for Day of the Dead?
I'm really glad you were listening because that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. All right. Glory to the Father, to the Son, to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, be forever. Amen.
Go be holy, everybody.